If public health professionals can explain what they do to their neighbors, that conversation becomes one of the most powerful forms of advocacy there is. In this episode, two leaders from a national organization share how they're building community through mentorship, wellness, and the arts, and why showing up, even quietly, counts. Listen to hear how plain language, creative programming, and grassroots presence are keeping the field strong right now. You're listening to the PHEC podcast, episode 458. Welcome to the Public Health Epidemiology Conversations podcast, where we have honest conversations with public health professionals who are creating meaningful impact in communities around the world. They know that the field of public health touches everything. I'm your host, Dr. Charlotte Hughes Huntley, and today we're exploring the fascinating journey of our guests and diving into another conversation that bridges different perspectives with the practical wisdom you need to fuel your impact. Greetings, everyone, and thank you for joining me on this episode. My name is Dr. Charlotte Huntley, and I lead an epidemiology consulting firm that supports large nonprofit organizations and community health foundations. We specialize in a variety of community assessments, workshops, and trainings, ultimately helping our clients communicate their health information in plain language to their community partners as well as the broader communities they serve. The support that we provide often falls in the category of strategic planning and sometimes capacity building. It just depends upon the needs of the organization. Please reach out to us through our website at drchuntley.com. We'd be happy to meet with you and explore how we might be able to support your organization. We'll also provide links in the show notes to make it super easy. I am very excited to introduce you to my guests on this episode. My guests are the founder and CEO of Sisters in Public Health, which is a national organization with 33 chapters advancing women in the field, and the organization's Los Angeles chapter chair, who works at the intersection of arts and public health. Together, we dig into how they explain public health to the people around them, the wide spectrum of advocacy, what Sisters in Public Health is building through mentorship and community events, and why collaboration matters now more than ever. This conversation is for anyone who wants to show up for public health in their own way. Let's connect that conversation right after we highlight our sponsor for this episode. Public health is about connection, and now you have a space built just for that. The PHEC Podcast Community app is where public health professionals come together to collaborate, share ideas, and support one another. Inside, you'll find exclusive events like Power Hour, which is our virtual co-working event. It helps you connect with others and boost your productivity. You'll also have direct access to conversations with other public health professionals from around the world, and even guests from previous podcast episodes. We're more than a podcast. We're a thriving community. Be a part of it. Download the PHEC Podcast Community app today and join us. Well, I'm excited, of course, for this conversation. I am joined by two women that represent a phenomenal organization that I'm going to let them introduce, but if you're not familiar, you might want to really lean in. So I'm going to start with introducing Angela first. So Angela, why don't you tell us a little bit about what you do in your organization? I'm excited to have you on the podcast.
Thank you for having me. My name is Angela Frazier. I serve as the founder and CEO of Sisters in Public Health. We're a national organization with 33 chapters now. So we are all over the U.S. and our focus is on really advancing women in the public health field. We do this by certifications, trainings. We have something really unique. We have a wellness retreat, which is where public health professionals come to recharge. And we just think about really pushing forward women in the public health field and making sure we're taking care of ourselves as we do so much for our broader communities.
That's amazing. Well, we're going to definitely hear a little bit more about that as we go along. And we also have Jennifer. Please introduce yourself. Welcome.
Thank you, Dr. Huntley. So my name is Jennifer Kuo. I also go by Jen. I am based in Los Angeles. So In addition to being the chapter chair of the Los Angeles chapter for Sisters in Public Health, I am also in the realms of arts and public health. So I do consultation and also a lot of practice in terms of building pilot programs for how do we utilize the arts for public health initiatives. So happy to be here.
Wonderful. Well, I'm excited for you both to join this conversation. I would like to just put a little context here. I mean, we've talked about it a little bit before we started the recording, but just for the sake of audience listening and to frame this conversation, I had a conversation with Angela, invited her and some of her team to join this discussion. I really believe it's a very critical time for us as a public health professional industry to really take an effort to try to explain public health a little more clearly and get more community buy-in. And what I mean by that is we're recording this in spring of 2025. This is a very important election year. We know that people have an understanding, some sense of what public health is from pandemic. And then last year, this political administration, this presidential administration really has been attacking a lot of what we believe in public health, attacks on science. And it has just been a chaotic swing. So moving into this year, one of the things that I really wanted to emphasize more, because I've been talking about this plain language initiative for years, but I think even more now, it is so important. If we can explain what public health is in plain language to our friends, our coworkers, even, because depending on where we work, sometimes people in departments adjacent to us don't fully understand what we do. But our friends, our family, our neighbors, if they can better understand public health through our lens, then I believe that the community, once they understand it and they value it, then they will advocate for the things that we don't want them to be so easily removed. So this is where I started this initiative of let's talk about public health on this podcast, leveraging this platform. How are we explaining it in plain language? And so far, I've realized that it's more complicated than we realized. I've had some guests come on and ask, okay, when I ask, how do you explain it? They're still trying to give the textbook definition. Or the other part that makes it challenging is that the field is so broad. So people try to put this over encompassing, really complicated definition together or to try to make everything fit. And I think what I'm trying to break away from is all of that. And if we just use the lens of which we work or frame it to a certain group or make it a little bit easier and just start the conversation, because it could be an ongoing conversation about what public health means, right? So with all of that background, I really was excited about the idea of your organization, you all coming. And I'm hoping that as we have this conversation, you'll be inspired to maybe take some of this back into Sisters in Public Health. And maybe we'll even have another group again in the future. We'll see where it goes. But we'll start off with Angela. We'll go in the same order. I'm going to ask this question of both of you, but we'll start with Angela. How are you explaining public health, or what tips do you have about explaining public health in plain language, easy to understand to either colleagues or whatever group? You pick one and just run with it.
I love it. Well, I'm an examples person. So anytime that I talk about public health, I give this example. And so it's actually near me. I have a couple intersections near me, and they're four-way stops. And one of them was always having accidents. And so eventually, and I was wondering for the longest time, when is somebody going to come in from the public health lens and fix this root cause here? And they changed it from stop signs to a light. And so that's a way in which public health professionals come in from a lens of, we don't want to keep seeing car accidents here, especially if they're fatal car accidents. And so let's stop this, because we were having trouble. I'm sure we've all had troubles at times at four-way stops, but there was definitely a lot in this particular area. And then now we have one as well that's less than a mile from my home, and we're still having trouble there. So in that one, I'm like, somebody in the public health world is going to come along and make this change. So I'm waiting to see when that one occurs. But that's the example that I always give to my family, is thinking about us coming in and getting to the root cause. And we've all have different examples how we've seen it in our communities, but being that we have two near my home, that's the example that I always give my family.
I also love those examples. And that's a great one because people, I think, generally will understand, well, something is happening, because when we always have problems, because I have a similar type of intersection where there was just 2 stop signs and there needed to be four-way stop signs, and that eventually shifted. I think the people in my neighborhood, my general area complained about it, and then it changed. But really being able to tell people this is public health, we're about prevention, and using that example is great because then they start connecting the dots. I love that.
Yes.
Jennifer, what about you? What are your thoughts on that question? How are you explaining public health in a way that is more easily understood to people around you?
Yeah, thank you. And when we were speaking about it earlier, plain language, I definitely feel like it's not very plain, right? No matter how plain we think we're trying to make it, it's not coming across. So that's really interesting. So I feel like public health is all about doing the best we can to live healthy lives, right? That's physically, socially, emotionally, mentally, and really having access to the resources so that we can actually live healthy lives. It's also about learning healthy habits and unlearning unhealthy behaviors too. But I also think it's something that we cannot do alone. Like we have to do it through community and raising awareness. So how I go about it is because I'm at the intersection of arts and public health, it's utilizing different art forms like theater or music and movement and dance to convey different public health communication. So it's giving people what they need and want, but wrapped in something to they actually enjoy and not know that they're actually learning about public health.
Oh, that's nice. That's a great approach. I had an aunt who's it was an educator, and when I was in like elementary school age in the summers, she had all these creative games
Mm,
that we played, but it was really all about learning. She was just interjecting that during our summer set instead of just being a total break in the summer. We were learning in these creative ways, and we kind of figured it out a little bit later on. But I think that's a great way to tuck it into something that's entertaining or something people already enjoy doing, and then being able to let them know and connecting the dots through something like that. It's great ideas, great examples. Does any of this resonate in terms of, or any other examples come up for you that you'd like to share? But also thinking about the work that you do with Sisters in Public Health, are there any initiatives or any opportunities to, are you already doing something that's similar where people are understanding and expressing that more into the community in some sort of advocacy type of role?
Yeah. I'm gonna pass that one to Jen right away because Jen does such great work within the LA area. And so I'm gonna let Jen kick us off on that one.
thank you, Angela. So each chapter in our nonprofit, we have quarterly events, and it's a mixture of social events or professional networking events. And we also have very one important event that we all do at least once a year, which is a volunteer service event. And then we also like to sprinkle in some wellness events. So I think what it is having that variety of different engagement points for not only our members, but also having them invite their family and friends to do different types of networking and just community service too. So I think because of the uniqueness of the flexibility we have in creating our events, it's also a great way to package in and layer these public health issues. So earlier this year, we had a facial gua sha workshop that we invited members to bring their family and friends to attend this wonderful, relaxing lymphatic massage. And almost everybody were like, "Oh, I bought a tool last year, but it's just sitting in my bathroom counter and I don't know how to do it." So I was like, you know what, let's get together and learn together as a community and actually do some hands-on practice. And like immediately people were feeling great and seeing results, but also telling me like a week later, "Hey, I've been doing this every morning and it's been really helpful and relaxing too." So just giving the opportunity to be together, learn and network, and then seeing these stories come about from even volunteer service events. We've been helping with the also wildfire victims too, supporting other distribution relief efforts. So there's all these different touch points and nuggets of stories of how people have engaged with us and then shared beyond what they've experienced and also come back to. So I really love all the different aspects of what we do.
I love that. And what comes to mind is I was recently moderating a session at a conference, and it was community voices. And these leaders were talking about essentially what's working in their communities, what are their challenges, and what's really working, like sharing some wins. And I started at the top of the session explaining to people, well, let them know there will be no slides. This is a conversation, like really relaxing the atmosphere. And then I reiterated the definition of health that I follow, which is very similar to the World Health Organization's definition of health. And Listening to you, it just kind of reminded me of that because it's health is not just the absence of disease. It absolutely is a part of that, but it's not just that. It's mental, physical, emotional, spiritual well being. So, what you're describing is with the lymphatic massage, that's a very important part of health, aspect of health. So, as public health professionals, you're partaking in that activity. So, taking care of yourselves, and then also being able to take it a step further and explain to friends and family this is what we're doing and why, and how this is connected to this wellness aspect and public health. I mean, there's so many ways we can just go that next step and connect the dots, and especially if you're already inviting friends and family to participate with that. I mean, that's just amazing. Like you're practicing it, you're explaining it, you're demonstrating it, and then there's like a story that you go on into the next thing that you do. So I like that so much.
Thank you.
Yeah. Anything come to mind, Angela?
I was just going to emphasize one thing that Jen said, and it just excites me when I hear it again, is that we are open to all to attend. It is, and just as kind of we're talking here on how do we explain what public health is better, because events are not open to all. Oftentimes it's cases where you have to be a member of an organization to attend an event, but there's always slots that we open up for people to invite family, friends. And so I think it gives people one that cushion to bring someone with them, oftentimes for that first time, but then people also leave the conversations or the workshops and trainings with the new lens and perspective. But I see us do it in so many different ways. We have our mentorship program. It's a national program where we pair mentees, so typically students, early careerists, or somebody making a pivot in their career with more seasoned professionals. And I always encourage our team that even if you are 2 years in your public health journey, there's someone who is in high school or is in their undergrad program that is you would be a great mentor for. So there's just so many avenues and ways that I feel like we are making it happen in this world of public health.
And to add to that, it just reminded me of last year around this time, both Angela and I, we were both at the Sophie conference, tabling and just presenting and meeting a lot of people that maybe heard about us on social, but finally like, oh, you're all here. Great to meet you. Or hearing about us for the first time. And I would say I was so pleasantly surprised that a lot of people were interested in the mentorship program. This is our fourth cohort, right, that we're looking for right now. And even though we're explaining like, oh, mentees can be students and mentors are seasoned professionals, it was great to hear a lot of seasoned professionals wanted to be the mentee. They wanted to also seek mentorship themselves. So that was really exciting and great to hear.
Yeah, that's really wonderful too. Also, just very encouraging at, again, just bringing it to context of where we are at this point on this journey, right? This is a challenging time to be in public health. So I think that people, however, the work still needs to be done. There's still so much work to be done. And we will forever be ebbing and flowing through some sort of challenge. So I think that it's important that we still have this pipeline, these people that are coming into the field that are still excited to come into the field and want to come and do this work, that we support them, we encourage them, we lock arms, and because we're all stronger together. So it's very refreshing to know that we do have people who are so interested. And there's almost, for me, it's almost like a mama bear reaction to want to protect them, encourage them, because these are the next wave of leaders. As a senior career professional, I'm thinking about it from that perspective. We definitely need to support and pour into anyone that is coming into this field. I will also add, I mean, we're forever learning. I think if you get to a point where you feel like you have nothing else to learn from anybody, that's a dangerous place to be. So there is always, from the coaching perspective, I used to always hear this phrase, coaches need coaches. So, when I coach someone, I've always had a coach.
Yeah.
So same with mentors. I mean, if I'm mentoring someone, I also have always had mentors to this day. So that's something that is really refreshing to see and to hear, but it's also very, I would be more concerned if you didn't ever hear that. That's really great. Also signs of the impact that you're having as well.
Thank you. And I tell my mentees that all the time. I'm like, I hire a coach every year. It depends on what it's for. Every year it looks different. I was
Exactly.
a student commencement speaker back in my master's program, and I hired, someone who does national talks and like work with that person for about 5 months prior to graduation to like just just work
Yes.
that entire approach. Like it's every year there's been something. When I went to launching consulting, work, just all of these different areas in life, I really lean into those who've done it before me, right? Who are kind of expertise, that are, like you said, you have to be always learning.
Absolutely. I'm enjoying this conversation. I'm thinking about because I feel like I go into a number of different directions right
Mhm.
now. But one of the things I want to try to do with the few moments we have remaining is to think about take advantage of this timing right now because this episode will come out. Of course, someone could be listening way past this year, and it still, I think, will be relevant information and advice. But I'm thinking about this being a very important election year and thinking about how we advocate for public health. And I think we need to be doing that all the time anyway. But is there anything that you think is a good message to share at this point or advice or guidance for anyone that is in public health, really advocating for public health toward this important election year? And what comes to mind in me asking this is I was chatting with a colleague not too long ago, and she loved this concept of like we're talking about what is public health and making sure our friends, family, colleague, getting more buy-in from the community. She also took it like as the next step. And she said, well, let's also take this to our representatives, our local level, policymakers, leaders, people running for office, you know, making sure that they understand and collaborating and maybe connecting in a human way, not really worried about whether they're red or blue, but finally that human connection, and then being able to help share, what that is or what that means. And I thought about that, and I thought for some people that's extremely intimidating. For other people, that's like, thinking of like interesting ways to do that. So at any rate, I was just curious to hear from you all with having the large community and several chapters. I don't know if your chapter specifically, Jen, does anything, or maybe Angela, if you all are aware of some of the other chapters that are maybe a little bit more advocacy focused. But I'd just love to hear any of your thoughts around that.
Yeah, I can kick us off. So it is a touchy subject in the world of nonprofit. I'll put that out there. And so we don't lean into like we're advocating for something. I think naturally the work that we're doing speaks for itself. And right, it's connecting women in the field. And so I feel like there's that natural approach to it, but I wouldn't say we're lobbying or anything of that
Right.
nation, via nonprofit status, have to be kind of careful in the ways that we do that work. I mean, that's before this current climate. That is
Right.
from that's just the nonprofit space in general, unless, right, you're focused on that. But I feel like what's nice about the communities within each of our chapters is friendships naturally occur. And I think within friendships occurring, people lean into the spaces that are really important to them. Some of that is advocacy, some of that is epidemiology, which Jen and I just said earlier today, that's like so scary for us.
Media health education
Yeah.
focus, right? We didn't
Yeah.
study or do, we passed our epi class, however,
Yes.
so kudos to all of you epi.
But I think there's some that, I remember our Philadelphia chapter was really big on maternal health, and they really did a lot of things within that space and were involved in a lot of community initiatives. So I think that each chapter kind of has its own unique personality and that they kind of branch off and end up doing even just in friendship, just in sisterhood is where that kind of falls into play. But in general, I feel like that's really the important piece is that connecting women in this field to be able to leverage each other's expertise, mentorship, friendship, that sisterhood. And then I feel like from there, it really kind of branches off and I see so many leaders. I just saw some, ironically, a couple leaders in Philadelphia doing some really great work. That they're both leaders in the organization. They're both somewhere in a totally different setting doing some great work. I just saw it in Connecticut as well, where there was an award ceremony. One of our leaders was being recognized by an organization in Connecticut, and then I saw a few of the leaders there as well. And so it's just that space, right, where I think it just kind of naturally kind of flows and ebbs and based on people's really interest areas.
I think you just provided like the best example and definition. So I'm going to go a little deeper. We have a private community for the podcast that we launched last year, private ad private community. So we're having conversations in the space. And instead of calling it advocacy, we have a column or a tier of conversations. And I think it's something like leading where you are. So because everyone has a different perception when you hear the word advocacy. You may envision, and there's like a whole scale. It could be very soft and subtle, all the way up to like signs and picketing and, really protesting and in that level. So I think that sometimes when we say advocacy, everybody has a different image that pops in their mind. And what you just described is perfectly aligned with advocacy. It's like leaning into something you care about, that you're really passionate about, and supporting that. That's advocacy, as well as the people that are, I love the people that are fired up and ready to go to the forefront and call them out and do the positions. I support that.
We need
But a
it.
lot of people that, are just leaning into clarify something to make sure that people understand. I think that's also a form of advocacy. So I think both are equally important. Essentially, what we're talking about in this plain language is a form of advocacy that's just as powerful and as important as, if we were standing out with a big sign with the details on it. So I love that you went into that definition, that you expressed that. Jen, did you want to add anything there?
Definitely. I can give you a very concrete example and then how it kind of can be leveraged no matter which public health field or topic anyone focuses on. So I mentioned I'm based in LA, but I'm actually here this week in our state's capital in Sacramento doing advocacy work. So to me, when I heard the word advocacy in the beginning, I really thought it was about lobbying as well. But I've learned that it can really be separate. Lobbying are folks that are paid to really, do the work of getting lawmakers to do X, Y, and Z. However, lawmakers really want to hear from constituents who live in the regions that they govern over. So I really lean in on grassroots efforts, right? Advocacy is about raising awareness, right? Just
Yeah.
like you said, Angela, it's talking to your friends and family about X, Y, and Z. That's advocacy, but not to the extreme where you think you have to be standing in front of lawmakers and making a speech. So I think a lot of different orgs have some sort of advocacy sector now where they have a team, right? So it's about even on the local level, how do you just go to your city's committee meetings, right, about topics you care about and just read a short 1 minute public comment or just even being present in the meeting. Like I've gone to my local city meeting, like the Parks and Recs to see what they're doing about green spaces, right? And I was the only one there. And I'm like, where are all the people? So it's also showing up in numbers, right? So whether you are marching, holding signs, whether you are sitting in a city hall room with people and listening to the lawmakers and, council people talk about issues, it's just showing up in numbers. So I think it's about thinking about grassroots. It could be scary, but start small and then just baby steps because they need different touch points. They need to hear certain issues a certain number of time, especially one that they can really relate to personally before they actually will take action and move things into law. So
I love that. You remind me of a story my mother used to tell me. Of course, my mother's advocacy work was very heavily involved in civil rights movement, and she would go during the time they were trying to desegregate schools. So my mother would show up at the meetings, and she said she would show up, and she'd have her notebook and her pen, and she was just showing up because she wanted her presence to be noted. And she said sometimes she didn't understand what they were talking about, but she'd scribble in her notebook and they'd say something, she'd just scribble. And then they were always wondering, like, what is she writing? What is she thinking? But she was just being present and she would speak up when she, needed to. But a lot of times she just like would scribble a
mm,
few notes. And so that presence, that's a very challenging position in time and move. So sometimes I think about that. I draw a little bit of courage to do some of the things that I want to do now. But I just love that we have a chance to kind of talk about the wide spectrum of what advocacy looks like. And there's something for everyone in between, from the most subtle moves to the most, vocal moves of advocacy and everywhere in between. I think it's just important that we find what resonates with us and lean into it and find a partner for accountability or for support, a colleague that is, well aligned, and you don't have to do it alone. We're a pretty broad and big field of folks here in public health.
Absolutely.
Now, I have to touch on something now. You mentioned the whole epidemiology thing, and I'm an epidemiologist.
Yes.
So I often joke about this, but that is so true. I hear when it comes down to epidemiology, it's like you love it and you're an epidemiologist, or it was just that class you had to take to get your degree. And there's rarely anything in between. But I'm just teasing you on this. But I do want to let you know that one of the things that I set an intention to do is really to make that less scary and less overwhelming. So even in my consulting work, I talk about all the time. I said, I help my clients because my clients are large nonprofit organizations and I help them communicate their health information in plain language. And a lot of times I'm doing assessments and analysis and working with the data, but my goal is to create and deliver the report, whatever it is, the presentation at the end, in a way that my clients understand. So sometimes my clients are like interdepartment, not just the straight to the community served. And there's all these challenges. So if you're ever in a situation where you're struggling with the data, partner with somebody who loves it and understands it that can, it's a very powerful combination. And I am available if you need any help with any of those challenges.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you. I love that.
Love it. You just partner with somebody who does.
Yes, exactly.
Collaboration is definitely key in this field for sure.
Yeah. I would say even more now than ever before. I think if, regardless of how well we collaborated in the past, I think we need to do more of that now. We need to really just smash the silos. There's just no room for it if we're really going to have the impact that we all want to see through public health. Then we really have to partner and we're stronger together. I keep saying that.
I appreciate that. Smash the silos.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate the time and conversation. I'd love to give you all an opportunity just and share any last thoughts as we wrap up. I will, of course, make sure that we have connection information and links to Sisters in Public Health in the show notes for this episode. As we wrap up, Angela, you have any final thoughts or words you want to share?
Just get connected and thanks for having us here. I was really excited about it. It's an awesome platform that you have. And so just kudos to you for bringing more awareness to the public health field. I mentioned before, we have so many opportunities to get involved. One being our wellness treat coming up, where I mentioned public health professionals come to recharge. We'll be hosting that in August this year in New Orleans. We pick a new city every year. So I would love for folks to get connected with Sisters in Public Health.
Nice, nice. And so that information will be on the website, right?
Yes.
Okay,
Absolutely.
perfect. And Jennifer, what about you?
Thank you so much for this opportunity for us to just have a chat about the importance of public health. And again, how even more important it is to share in plain language as best we can. So I'm just really excited to see this field grow, even with all the challenges. It's like, how do we utilize all those struggles and challenges to evolve and taking a next step beyond just being a buzzword, right? Because it was a buzzword during COVID and job security, and now everything's kind of like under attack. So how do we really come together as one, learn from each other, and just continuing that skill of growing and sharing and making a social change and impact in our communities?
Thank you both so much. This has been such a delight. And I wish you much success in Sacramento, Jen. You have to
Yes.
follow up and let me know how it turns out.
Yeah, thank you. We're gearing up today to meet with 600 attendees for our summit. And then tomorrow we are marching towards a musical march because we're all about arts advocacy. So musical march to their offices to have meetings with them. So thank you.
Fantastic. All right, ladies, I'll be in touch.
Thank you. Take care.
I really hope you enjoyed that conversation as much as we did. This episode is a reminder that public health lives in everyday conversations, in showing up at a city council meeting, in inviting your neighbor to a wellness workshop. My guests make really clear that advocacy doesn't require a megaphone. It requires showing up consistently, leaning into what you care about, and connecting with others who do the same. Whether you're 2 years into your career or 20, there's a role for you here. Your presence, your voice, and your network are tools. Use them. I encourage you to connect with Angela and Jennifer and learn more about the great work that they're doing at Sisters in Public Health. You can find links to connect with them on the show notes page. And the show notes page for this episode, which is episode 458, can be found at phecpodcast.com. Once you're there, just navigate to episode 458 to find the show notes. One more thing before we go. Remember that our podcast has an app and private community independent of social media platforms where you can engage with public health professionals around the world. In addition to being a part of this amazing community, and it truly is amazing, your membership supports the production of this podcast and episodes just like this one. You can download the PHEC Podcast Community app in your mobile app store, and it is available for both Apple and Android users. You can also visit phecpodcastcommunity.com to join the community on desktop. All right, everyone. Until next time, have a fantastic rest of your day. Thank you for listening. The show notes page is where you'll find links to everything we discussed in this episode. To find the show notes for all of our podcast episodes, just visit phecpodcast.com.